Good afternoon, all. Welcome to the Training Initiative's learning webinars. I'm joined by three of our apprenticeship tutors today, Sonji Clayton, Sam Garnham, and Laura Haitley. We're here today predominantly to talk about one of the tools that we use in our apprenticeship programs, the flipped learning model, which underpins a lot of the structure to learning for our apprenticeships on their program. The tutor is going to talk to you a bit about how that impacts the learning for the apprentices and the overall impact that has on the businesses that those apprentices are working in. Before we start, I'm going to just do a quick round robin and ask the tutors to introduce themselves. So I'll start with you, Sonji. You're to my left.
Okay, my name is Sonji Clayton. I'm the marketing tutor. I teach across the marketing standards. For example, digital marketing, sales executive, and marketing manager are three of many of the standards.
Great, Sam.
So I'm Sam Garnham. I'm a quality manager. So I work with the tutors in a supportive way, trying to ensure that what we deliver is the best it can be. I also deliver on leadership and management and education standards at level 3 and level 5.
Thank you. And finally, Laura.
I'm Laura and I am a specialist tutor. I deliver across the customer service standards, so level 2 and level 3.
Great. Before we go any further, I think I did neglect to introduce myself. I'm Ben Calvert-Lyons. I'm Director of Partnerships and Engagement here. And I try to help tell the rest of the world the great work that these three and the rest of our tutors do. So we're focusing on the flipped learning model. I'm going to hand over to Sam, who's been a champion of this and really supported the development and introduction to this into our programs. And as he said, works closely with all of our tutors to support them and ensure that their delivery is accurate and that they're making the progress and their apprentices are making the progress that they want. Sam, while you're talking, I'll share my screen so I can kind of show the bits for the flipped learning model.
Brilliant. So yeah, as Ben says, flipped learning isn't necessarily a brand new concept. It has been around for a while, but it's certainly something that we've introduced relatively recently to the way we deliver our apprenticeship training. And the concept is that we essentially, clues in the title, flipped learning, we're taking the classroom and turning on its head. So typically or traditionally in education, learners would attend a session, a workshop, a lesson in a classroom, or more recently online, and they would be taught the basics of a certain topic, and then they might be set homework to go away and stretch that learning and to take it further and take it to a higher level. What the flipped classroom essentially does in the flipped learning model is it actually, as a tutor, allows us to set tasks, homework as prior learning. So before actually attending a session, a learner might access a pre-recorded video, online videos, articles or books, and do some reading in general around a topic before they actually attend the session. And then we might assess them on that at the beginning of the next level, the next lesson, or before they even attend that. The idea is then that the session that they have live with a tutor, whether that's in the classroom, whether that's online, can actually be used to build on some fundamental knowledge that they already have from that pre-learning. And that means that the time they have with a tutor can be better utilised to stretch their understanding to a new level, really, and to use some of their higher order thinking skills. And for anyone who's kind of familiar with Bloom's taxonomy as a theory relating to learning, the way we talk about this is, for example, the pre-learning that we set will help a learner to get a very fundamental level of understanding around a topic. They'll be able to remember key facts and have, like I say, a basic understanding of a topic. Then the session they have with a tutor, again, whether that's individual or group, should enable them to take part in discussion, complete written work, and essentially just think at a deeper level around that topic, because they already have the basics. And then following on from that session, they can take that knowledge and that deeper understanding they've gained and start applying it in the workplace. And that's obviously crucial for an apprenticeship, because that's ultimately what we're trying to do. We're training people, we're delivering new knowledge and skills and behaviours that they can then go and apply in the workplace. And I think particularly for apprenticeships, flipped learning is great, because we do only have a limited amount of time with an apprentice compared to the amount of time that they're in the workplace. Typically, it's only going to be a few hours a week at the most. However, by setting pre-learning and getting them thinking before they even enter the classroom or the virtual classroom, and then taking that limited live time we have, it might only be a fortnightly session for an hour or two, we can use that much better to take the learning to the higher levels, and particularly where we're working with higher level apprenticeships at level 4, level 5 and beyond. That's really important. So that is the model, and that is why we use it, just to try and maximize the time that we have with our apprentices and stretch the learning to as high a level as we can.
I can really, I really see that. I mean, I suppose from a tutor's perspective, like as you're saying, that means that you're able to really target the areas of where you can maybe see gaps in knowledge and understanding, or perhaps where you can see opportunities to really develop some of the streams or the patterns of thinking that there is from that apprentice. Do apprentices recognise that as well? Do they? From your perspective, Sam, do your apprentices recognise the benefit in that as well?
Yeah, definitely. So just for an example, I work with, I tutor an apprentice on our level 5 learning and skills teach program. So obviously we're talking level 5, it's almost degree level. And that means that there is relatively high expectations for them to use those higher level thinking skills, to be able to evaluate and analyse things, and to take theory and apply it to their own practice. And I think they recognise that actually what we do in those sessions, because they're already coming with a fundamental understanding of a topic, that development we do in the session then allows them to fully grasp it at the level they need to. Whereas perhaps if they were coming to a session and it was just me delivering that new knowledge and then saying, right, go away and evaluate that, analyse that, I don't think it necessarily embed that understanding for them.
Yeah, and I suppose that comes down to that you've kind of given them some responsibility to come with some knowledge and understanding beforehand, so they need to come armed with that. I suppose as well, my background's teaching, classroom teaching, and I, the one thing that the beauty that I see with this is, I suppose it negates as best as you can the issues there are around, as human beings, one of our big fallibilities is concentration and focus. We've only got a finite amount of time and energy that we can focus on things. And, an hour and a half session is a long time to be focusing on bits. And, generally 20 minutes is probably a maximum for real focus. Mm-hmm. And often, within that, we've got things falling out the other side of our brain as other bits are coming in. So I suppose with this opportunity or this model, it gives the apprentice, the learner, time to establish exactly what they know, gain some knowledge and understanding, then present it. Then you're talking about it. You're constantly confirming and building on what that knowledge is. So it's going back over and
definitely. And then session by session. So from one session, the pre-learning from that will probably, like I say, build on what happened in the previous session, and it might reflect back. And then throughout over the course of a whole program, there's going to be plenty of opportunities to record that and, like I say, build on it and kind of build up that scaffold of knowledge.
Yeah. All right, great. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. I think that's giving people time to see it. But if anyone watching is interested in getting more information on that, please get in contact with us through the Training Initiative website, and we'd be more than happy to have a conversation with you or send you some information on it. But we need to see everyone's faces in more detail. So thanks for that, Sam. And I'm really interested to know now, Laura, Sanji, what your thoughts are and how you utilise it. And I wondered, Laura, if you'd talk to us a bit about how do you use it in the customer service apprenticeships?
Yeah, so I think one of the great things about kind of the flipped learning model is, and one of the reasons why I love using it, is because although it is, from what you've heard from Sam, quite structured, it has obviously those points of the prior learning, the analysing, the implementing, the reflecting. It still leaves quite a bit of room for flexibility. So what I love about it is the processing element. So what you have with this method that you maybe don't have with others that we've kind of come across is that learners have a lot more time to process, and they have not just the time, but also the opportunity to look for different ways of processing bits of information. So whether that's from podcasts, whether it's from articles, online resources, websites, video clips, wherever it might be that, you know, they source the information from, or whatever it is that we share with them, I feel like they have that time to be able to kind of take it in, you know, rewatch or whatever it is that they're doing or accessing. They've got multiple chances to go back to it. They can ask questions before the session, you know, email us, get in touch with us. And I just think that you don't have that with obviously the standard classroom teaching, that time to kind of take it in and look into a bit more depth. And I think that only benefits them when they come obviously to then implementing it and showing us that when they do have sessions with us. But also when it comes to our progress reviews, we're hearing back a lot about that from the employers as well, how they're seeing the benefits of them having that time to process, having that time to understand, really look into, you know, more depth at certain topics, and then be stretched and challenged even further than they would have had time to be able to do previously. And then they're reaping the benefits of that obviously when they're implementing, that they've got that additional, you know, that additional time. And I think as well, what comes kind of within that is them using the initiative, them having that independence, and them taking that responsibility for their own learning. That's something else that kind of we're hearing a lot about when it comes to speaking to the employers, and how it's not just benefiting the learners, but also benefiting them, because they're gaining all these skills. They're being independent, they're taking that responsibility with us in the learning and the teaching, and then they are taking that back into the workplace, but without even realising they're doing it. And I think that's what's great with the flipped learning model, is a lot of the time they're actually gaining these skills and using these skills without even realising.
And so on that, you mentioned about kind of coming across that, or going back to that in those progress reviews. Is that something you find yourself doing? Then are you maybe sometimes pointing that out to the apprentice? Look at the journey you've come on. Look at what you've achieved so far with this.
Yeah, definitely. We do. Obviously, with our progress reviews, we make sure that we actually get prior feedback from the employer as well, so that if they obviously, hopefully they do attend, we like them to, but just if they don't, we can kind of share that. But the point of it is that we know how important it is for them to see, for the learner to be able to see what impact they're having on the business, and how everything that they're doing is contributing to, you know, adding value to the company, adding value to the role that it is that they're doing. They need to be able to see that, because I think if they don't, then for them it would be the kind of, you know, what am I doing it for? What's the end goal? What's the outcome? I think that's got to be consistent, and that's got to be shown to them throughout, because, you know, I've been there. You don't always pick up on these things yourself, and your employer doesn't always point these things out to you because they're busy. We that, you know, organisations, businesses, they're busy. So I think it's nice to have that time and take that time for everyone to come together and to share, you know, the successes.
Yeah, totally. And really, that's what the apprenticeship is about, isn't it? The apprenticeship is there to first and foremost, really. I mean, the learning is there for the apprentice, but it's about supporting the business to find a way of them developing their staff or bringing someone new into a role, and being able to do that, and know that they're going to get a return on their investment. I mean, something you talked about right early on as well, in those your comments there, Laura. You talked about flexibility, and the time to fit it around a working role, and you know they're two of the key aspects of why I certainly champion apprenticeships and why I feel that apprenticeships are the best model of workplace learning. But you also mentioned something about time to process and opportunities for different input to process, and I hadn't really considered that until you said. But for some of our neurodiverse apprentices or individuals who maybe struggle with classic classroom learning, I suppose this model again it gives a number of touch points for a particular topic and garnering and gaining knowledge. It might be reading, watching videos, then creating, developing themselves, then listening to their tutor talk, and then interacting in the discussion. There's a whole, with this as the model, there's lots of points where they need to focus on what they do know and try to analyze, digest, rework that knowledge.
Yeah, just a point on that, Ben. Actually, you mentioned about obviously the neurodiversities and how that can be. I mean, I suppose it's the same as anything when we're teaching. That when we are working with people who do have those learning differences, it's getting an understanding of what their preferences are. So tailoring the pre-learning to, okay, can we find something that's more going to give them kind of a visual aid, or it's going to be an audio aid, so it's going to talk to them. It's perhaps going to combine those. So as ever, it's important that we understand and know as much about our learners as possible. But yeah, it does possibly open up a little bit that flexibility that Laura talks about. It does open up different possibilities, I suppose, and different ways of getting that information across, while also maintaining plenty of time with the tutor on a one-to-one basis to check for understanding and check that it has been kind of digested properly. And perhaps rather than trying to fit all of that into just one session every fortnight, if they've had the opportunity to try and access something in advance, then it does mean that hopefully, together with the amount of time they have with the tutor in a session, it's going to give plenty of opportunity to reinforce that and present it in different ways if needed, to make sure that all of those different learning styles, learning preferences, and neurodiversities have been accounted for.
Yeah, and I suppose that's important with whatever the topic is, whatever the kind of method that's being used for the delivery, that kind of understanding the needs of the individual. And I suppose really it's another opportunity, an apprenticeship with a supportive tutor that enables individuals who might find it difficult to integrate into the workplace when they're starting a new career or learning a new role. It gives an extra sort of scaffolding of support, I guess, alongside that, to help them with that, and that extra mentor maybe to talk about things that they might be finding awkward or difficult. An apprenticeship, I suppose, offers another opportunity of support to make sure that there is success in that situation. I suppose, Sonji, I know before I come on to you, because I know you had some bits to say about how you're using flipped learning model, but to all three of you, is there a negative in the flipped learning model? Is there a potential that if you're kind of leaving the responsibility to the apprentice, that they're going to struggle with that they're not going to take that responsibility at that first stage? What happens if they turn up and they haven't done that pre-learning.
Yeah, it's a very real and probably the biggest risk. It is a very real possibility that you're gonna set a piece of work and you've put time into sourcing a great article or video to set up for your learner, and then they turn up to the session and not done it. And I think it's just it's very much a case of we're setting these expectations high that apprentices will come to a session having done that pre-learning, and they will soon find that if they don't do that, they're limiting their own potential, I suppose. Obviously we have the progress review process where we work with employers to discuss progress, and if that was a consistent issue, then we would deal with it, because for us it's something that everyone has to buy into and make sure that they're making time for. I mean, the idea of pre-learning is not to send hours and hours of work that somebody has to do before they even hit the team session or the classroom. Generally, they are quite quick tasks. It might be reading an article, like say online, which might be 15-20 minutes. It might be watching a short video and taking notes to come to the lesson with. So we're not asking the world, I wouldn't think, but that's very much, I'd say, the biggest danger and the biggest risk. And I think that's where we, as a provider and as individual tutors, have to be strong and say, actually, no, this is our expectation. It certainly happened to me, where you do have individuals who haven't done their homework, if you like. And I think, yeah, as long as we're strong in reinforcing the expectations and make it clear, actually, well, this is the limits that you're putting on yourself by not being accountable and not taking responsibility for your own learning, it tends to have a positive effect, which ultimately it hinders their ability to learn about something in as much depth as they need to or might even want to. So, yeah, I think it's important to tackle it.
I think, as well as kind of considering, obviously, what you just said, Sam, was a really good point about obviously having that consistent communication, obviously part of building the relationship with the learners. I also think kind of what comes into that as well is obviously the initial assessment side of things. So before they even start the programme and get into this model, I think it's making sure that we've got all that information needed with regards to that learner, you know, their prior learning before they even come to us, anything that the employer might want to obviously pass on information-wise, if there is any specific learning difficulties or anything like that. I think the more that we gather within those initial assessments, then the more we might get a bit of a kind of a hint as to what might present as a bit of an obstacle for them with getting things like that done. And I think, I'm not saying if you don't pick up on, you know, nothing's flagged up in the initial assessments, that means they're going to be, you know, perfect throughout the programme. By any means, that's why it is important to build that relationship. But I do think they are a really good indication, the initial assessments, especially obviously how much depth we do go into with them now, which is great. I think they do give a kind of a good indication of potentially which learners we might get that issue with. So then we can, you know, we can make sure, like Sam said, standards are really set, put into place, you know, really clear. Anything we do need to send additionally, we can get that done, to make sure, yeah, that hopefully it won't happen.
Yeah, and I suppose that brings quite nicely actually onto what you were saying, Sanji, about where you feel. I know you said you felt that the real benefit you've seen that flipped learning model is helping the learner move from sort of the learning you've done in one module, one area, and prepare them to as they move into the next area, they're kind of confirming what their knowledge is on a particular area, and then sort of demonstrating how they're using and applying it in their in the business.
Yeah, I think I tend to, I mean, when I've used that model, as we were discussing before, I set an activity that was based around creating a buyer persona. And it was very focused on niche marketing and selling to that one person, that one personality, or that one business, that one client. And I think it's, for me, very important to kind of set a little bit of a foundation, say in one workshop, then you set that flipped learning, and then you give feedback. For example, in my buyer persona activity, I gave feedback within their off-the-job journal, which is very important to the process as well, because they're building on their off-the-job hours. And they're also showcasing, you know, what they've done and how they felt about it and how it benefited them from a personal and professional side. But I think also with the buyer persona, I was very aware, I suppose, of the fact that when you use models and theories, they cannot just be kind of literally a theory that you can't use in a practical manner. You know, I want my learners to be marketing practitioners from the very start. So I want them to feel confident that when I do this buyer persona, oh, wow, actually, I can use this as an idea that will impact positively on the business, you know, because marketing is about the bottom line, isn't it? It's about bringing in leads, creating and nurturing a relationship, and then building those sales and repeat sales, and creating buyer personas, especially within the digital marketing world, is very much the thing now. And so for me, when I speak to a learner, I'm saying you need to think entrepreneurially, you need to think from a business perspective, not just, well, I am a digital marketer. You've got to think of your impact on the business and the bottom line. So I think an activity like that, as Sam and Laura have said, it's very kind of, it's independent learning. It encourages all these other different wider ranges of skills and benefits. But I think it also keeps them very much focused on, you know, this is why I'm here. I'm here not just to benefit myself from a personal and professional level, which it will do, but I'm also here to impact on the business and its bottom line and its clients and its customers, you know, whether it's business to business or business to customer. So I think it's really important that the models that I use, particularly in marketing, make sense in the business world.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I mean, that's definitely the case in marketing, isn't it? And it's really interesting. I talk with marketing companies who talk to me, tell me about graduates who are coming out. They've done 3 years at university, and they come in and they can't use and apply that knowledge. They haven't got the business. They haven't got the business acumen. They're not used to the working environment, and you know, comes back to another reason why I just feel that apprenticeships are so much better suited to supporting people to be to upskill and be effective in the workplace. I mean, I know of marketing agencies who take on individuals who've done degrees and then put them into an apprenticeship program at a higher level because they know they're going to get those. They're going to be able to get that kind of that learning that they need. But I suppose that's the case. You know, that point you've made there about the bottom line, about the impact on revenue generation. At the end of the day, the reason why any business employs someone is to maximize that revenue generation, isn't it? Is to affect that bottom line. If it's someone in business admin who's just going to be doing the admin office work, that is to take on some of the administration to allow free up someone else to have more revenue generating activity. So revenue generation is the key outcome needed for everybody in their place of work anyway, whatever it is, but every apprentice as well. And so the more that those conversations can be had and individuals can recognize the responsibility they have in those roles to the business as a whole, I guess the better and more impactful they can be in their role and to the business. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah.
So I suppose you know you mentioned there specifically about the kind of the marketing aspect. Do any of you feel there's a particular subject matter that the flipped learning model is better suited to, or do you feel that it's equally applicable across the standards that you teach?
Good question.
That's a difficult one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Good question, actually. It's making me think.
Same.
I don't know.
No, I mean, I suppose immediately my thoughts are, well, where wouldn't it work? And I'm struggling to think of anything where I'd say, well, actually, that doesn't. There's nothing that jumps out to me that says, oh, it wouldn't work for this or it wouldn't work for that. I think perhaps where people might question its use is actually with perhaps more practical hands-on skills of physically having to do something, and we're perhaps talking outside apprenticeships, but things like health and safety and first aid and things like that, where you have to physically be able to demonstrate something and to be able to do it safely and competently. But I still don't think that is to say that there aren't opportunities to come to a session with some prior understanding about what you might be doing and what you might have to do in terms of to physically be able to do something. So again, I don't think it's necessarily outside of the realms of flipped learning. No.
Okay. Well, I thoroughly interesting and entertaining half an hour. You three, thank you for your time on that. I definitely feel like I've gained a better understanding of the impact of it, and I think it's just only served to kind of further excite me really about why we're in this industry, and why the training initiative do put so much time and effort into making sure that our apprenticeship training is at the best level that it can be. So thank you all for the time you spend with all our apprentices, for the great work you do with them, and especially for your time this afternoon. I guess final thought is there anything from any of you before we want to go?
No, just thanks for giving us the platform, I suppose, to come and talk about something I think that we're all pretty passionate about.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, Brill. Well, final thing, I'm just going to just touch back on something that both Sonji and Laura have said, which is about the kind of the idea that apprenticeships as a whole are really about helping the learner, the apprentice, to take responsibility for their own development, and that should definitely that we should be ensuring that we know that has an impact on the business, because there's two customers we serve. We serve the apprentice with their learning, and we serve the employer to make sure that they've got an employee that really is impactful in the business, and as Sonji said, affects the bottom line. They can definitely see a return in their investment. Something I've only just come up with during this, but we're in the business of supporting the business, basically. So thank you all for doing that. We're the Training Initiative. All viewers, we'll see you again at the next one. Take care. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Cheers, Ben. Thank you.